Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. I'm your host, Bill Potter. Joining us once again in the studio is State Senator Mark Messmer to talk about bills that are in the legislature right now. Of course, we're all talking on the Senate side with Senator Mark Messmer. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
Well, let's talk about some bills that you wanted to bring up because we haven't talked about them, and that's Senate Bill 2 and 3. Okay.
Yep. So I tried to look back through all the lists. I try to keep notes of what we talk about so that I can remember not to cover it again. But there was two of our priority bills that passed. That one is Senate Bill 2, and what that does is make sure, for the current school year, a lot of schools had to do, some virtual class time, and what the law says today is if you're over 50%, virtual learning, you only get 85% of what the funding formula is set up for the brick and mortar schools, and if you're more than 50% virtual, you only get 85% of that amount. And if we didn't change that law, I think our schools in DuBois County did a great job of keeping in-person classes all year. Hats off to them. But even in the spring semester, a lot of them would have been probably 50%. So to avoid a financial hiccup where those schools only got 85% of what they thought they were going to get, we passed Senate Bill 2, which says for the current school year, all schools. Now, if you were only a virtual school, you're still only going to get 85%. But if you were a brick and mortar school, no matter if you had to do some virtual learning or not, you're going to get 100% of your funding. I think it passed unanimously. And there was one of the House bills has some similar language in it. I'm not sure which bill on the House side has it, but we wanted to make sure that it came through with just that in it. I think in the House bill, it's probably with 10 other things. But we want to make sure that's a clean bill and through, and it passed and is off to the House.
And that's one of those bills where you go, why do you pass so many bills? 5 years ago, who'd have thought about a pandemic? And 5 years ago, virtual learning was not necessarily available
You're
everywhere.
Exactly right.
Now it is.
Just an example. Why do you have to pass so many laws? Well, things happen, and most of what we do every year is just fixing things that, oops, we didn't catch that, or oops, we didn't think about that. And so you go back and modify or update current laws. So the other pretty significant bill we thought was Senate Bill 3, and during the emergency order, when things in this the first from the first emergency order, the governor allowed telehealth services just to get people the ability to stay connected with their doctor, where you couldn't always do in-person visits. It allowed and really the use of the telehealth is up to the doctor or the physician's assistant or whoever is going to be chiropractor. You obviously can't have a chiropractic manipulation over the phone, but if you've got some follow-ups to how's your how are your exercises going, if you've been put on a diet program with as part of your medical follow-up, things like that can be done either over the phone or through Zoom or and even there's even a telehealth service company that contacted me this week, and they've got an app that lets you, record your answers to the questions to the doctor, and then he can come back, maybe later in the day, and look at the recording. For places that don't have strong streaming services, it doesn't chew up as much data, or doesn't require the same level of streaming capability. So in rural America, that can be significant. So. That's in Senate Bill 3, and it applies to all medical professionals. If you're a licensed medical professional, telehealth has been opened up. We had about half of our professions had that, available to them prior to the pandemic, but during, he opened it up to all licensed medical operators, and it was shown that it works, and it works well. So that's Senate Bill 3 that passed. I'm pretty sure unanimously as well, and Representative Lindauer has a companion bill that's coming over that's structured very similar to Senate Bill 3. I'm one of the authors or sponsors of that in the second half of session. So look forward to looking at the two, looking at the the tweaks maybe in one or the other to get them to mirror each other pretty closely, and look forward to that passing in the second half.
Now there is a bill on lawful carry, and this is that it's a bill that is a House bill. It's come to the Senate. There is not a Senate bill that has gone to the House. So this is whatever adjustments you make that will go back. It's called the lawful carry.
Lawful carry.
To me, it's the concealed carry.
That's
right?
really what it deals with.
Okay.
If you can have a what they call a long gun, rifle, shotgun. There's no permit required. That you could strap one on your shoulder and carry it. Around town all you wanted. There's no permit required for a long gun. But if you're going to carry a handgun, so technically it's a handgun permit. You could carry it concealed or open. But to carry a handgun, we've had for a long time. 20 or 30 years, we've had a permit process. Didn't always have one. And 1376, I think, might be the House bill number. Not 100% sure on that. But I met with the House author last week, and I also met with the state police. Just to, they testified, and some, the chiefs of police and state police. Some of the police organizations, not all, were opposed. I think the Sheriff's Association was officially neutral on the bill. Then they had several sheriffs that came in and testified in support of it. It doesn't strike any gun law. We've got red flag laws that if you have a friend or family member that you think is a threat to themselves or other people, you can turn that person's name into law enforcement. There's processes in place then to review that that person, that situation, and potentially take their guns if they could be a threat to themselves or other people. It doesn't strike any law. If you're a felon, you can't have a gun, and if you have a gun, it's another felony, probably more serious than the initial felony you committed. Doesn't take away any of those. But what it does do, and where the state police said, why do we oppose it? And they said, here's the scenario, and it impedes our ability to do our police job, well as we want to be able to do it. If they pull you over and they see your license plate, or you hand them your registration or your driver's license, they can go back and scan that, and they can verify if you have a permit to carry. If you don't, and they see a firearm, if you're out of state, number one, you probably don't have a state carry permit, but you might. But if they know you're not a permit holder and they see a firearm in your vehicle, that alone gives them probable cause to maybe search the vehicle for drugs or stolen merchandise. It inhibits their ability to do the other policing that would normally pop up, from seeing a weapon in a vehicle, that a person doesn't have a permit to. It might only be a misdemeanor for carrying the gun without a permit, but it allows them then to have probable cause to search for other things.
So that's the bill that's coming over to eliminate that altogether.
Right. Yeah, it would take away that permit. And what the House passes, it just takes away the process of applying for that handgun permit, that the state police currently do. What they also suggested is, let's keep the permit process, but let's make it a free permit process where you can get your lifetime permit. We have a 5-year permit that's free now, that you could just keep renewing for a 5-year permit. That's already in statute. But they said, let's just change it. Let's make it a lifetime permit. No charge for that. They can turn the process of those applications around in 7 to 10 days. And about 3 years ago, we passed another law that if you have a restraining order against another person, for fear of physical harm to you, or somebody that's threatened to kill you, you can apply for an expedited permit, and I believe that turnaround time is like 24 hours. If you actually have a restraining order against another person, you can in a situation of domestic battery. That was the emphasis for that, and I believe that was in, I'm going to say 2018. We passed that. That was it was a House bill. I was a Senate sponsor of that bill when we moved that through. So it might have been 2017. But what the state police would like to see, just so they have the ability to continue to to police the way they do, when they pull somebody over, they said it doesn't make us unsafe. They said we approach every vehicle as if that person in that car might be ready to shoot us. I said, does it, and states that have passed the lawful carry or constitutional carry that has different names they've put on it, there's no statistical evidence to show that it leads to more crime or leads to any increase in gun violence on law enforcement officers. Statistically, that's not a valid reason to oppose it. They just they just want to be able to police the way they need to effectively to maybe catch drug traffickers or other folks that pop up through their normal process of pulling a guy over for speeding or a headlight out. It just gives them ability to police better.
Will the Senate change that to change? It's really basically the permitting process.
Yes, I would imagine that we would probably change it to the version that the state police would like to see. Then whether the House concurs to that or lets the bill die, hard to say where that'll go.
But it does not affect any of the current gun laws. It's just simply the permit, whether you pay for it or not, in a way.
Basically.
It's basically it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then this little adjustment, then it would go back to the House.
Yes. If we amend it, then they gotta they've either gotta pass the changes again, or they've got to or they go to conference committee to try to hammer out a different agreement. That
now the state police will lose a little bit of income.
They would, and the House in their budget, as they passed the budget in the first half of the session, have already replaced the local and state revenue that if the permit process goes away, they've already, because they use that money for training, whether it's at local or local level or state level, and so rather than rely on the permit process, permit fees for their training programs, the House put in the budget to cover the funding of those training programs in the budget.
You mentioned, is it possible it won't even come up on the floor?
Oh, it's possible.
And then,
yeah.
I mean, that's really with any bill,
yeah,
except for the budget.
Yeah, because it's in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and if the chairman doesn't want to hear the bill, I mean, sometimes if there's a issue that's got a lot of high public concern, we'll talk about it in caucus. And Monday, we didn't have any caucus meetings this week, being the first week of working on House bills, but we're going to meet on Monday, and I'm sure that item will come up, and then she might say, unless the majority of the caucus wants to move it, I mean, she might say, I'm not hearing it, I'm not moving it, and then it's done.
It just dies and may have to come up another year.
Yeah.
And that's really the same process for any bill.
Any bill.
Yeah.
And I think the House has tried to move this issue, I mean, at least as long as I've been in the Senate. I don't know that it ever came up while I was in the House, but I know the last 6 or 7 years, it's been an issue that they've tried to move and get enacted in the law. And this is probably the closest they've come to, first time they've actually passed a bill that does it. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens the second half.
All right. Well, and we are in the second half. Mm-hmm. All right. Good luck with that, and we'll have you back next week, I hope.
Yep.
All right. State Senator Mark Messmer, thank you very much for being our guest.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
He'll be back again next Friday telling us about what's happening in the Senate side of the legislature. Thank you for watching 18 WJTS. Again, thanks to our guest, State Senator Mark Messmer. Thank you for watching. We are local people watching local people.